Continuing onward, I have thoroughly studied the Magnus effect. Oh, not precisely the Magnus effect, but rather the Dzhanibekov effect. It turns out that this specific phenomenon, which was not initially discovered by the cosmonaut Dzhanibekov, was indeed recognized approximately 200 to 300 years ago, yet it was attributed to him. It is a physical occurrence where a racket, for instance, possesses three distinct axes of rotation. What are the three axes of rotation? Here we have the axis of rotation of the racket. Look, the fan operates in this manner. We rotate it along one axis, but in reality it shifts, although the axis remains approximately like this. I will remove it, the racket. So in this instance, we have the axis of rotation situated in the center, where the typical equilibrium is maintained. In this specific scenario, if the racket happens to be rotating in this particular manner, we are indeed rotating around an alternative axis. And now we must ascertain which of these axes possesses the least amount of inertia. The axis with the minimal inertia is the one aligned along this foil axis, which measures approximately 15 centimeters here, roughly 13 to 15 centimeters. These edges contribute to generating inertia for the racket's body itself. And in this specific instance, the inertia is produced at a distance of nearly 35 centimeters for a 150-gram racket. It's quite similar here, except perhaps with the presence of air resistance, as we are within the atmosphere, but in a zero-gravity environment, this is not the case. In zero gravity, this axis would not differ from the other one. So, in what manner? When possessing such axes of rotation for the body, while rotating around one of these principal axes, for instance, the body, I will now demonstrate this phenomenon. It will rotate along this axis, and during the rotation around this axis in a state of weightlessness, it will follow this axis, specifically along the weaker axis. This phenomenon is referred to as the Dzhanibekov effect, and it will not turn. But why is that the case? Now, allow me to elucidate the reasons behind why it did not rotate in this particular manner, even to a minor extent or at a slight angle. It did not rotate, but rather turned slightly at an angle. What specific angle are we referring to? The angle is roughly around 30 degrees. It rotated ever so slightly. The angle is precisely positioned in this particular manner, specifically at an angle of 45 degrees, not rotated 45 degrees in a condition of weightlessness. The body initiates oscillatory movements like this along this specific axis, oscillatory movements along this axis, and with particular exertions in weightlessness. During one of the oscillatory movements, it will attempt to rotate to 90 degrees, and it endeavors to rotate to 90 degrees, and subsequently, due to inertia, since this axis will possess inertia, it will rotate further and culminate in 180 degrees. Inertia primarily will endeavor to rotate and will, for instance, rotate in a clockwise direction. How do we implement this in the tag? If we proceed to turn off the lights in a clockwise direction, he confidently asserts that during this particular strike, we might potentially experience the presence of the Dzhanibekov effect, possibly with such a minuscule moment of inertia that it is rather nonsensical to overly perplex students with this effect in an extensive manner. What sort of indolent exercise is this? It's quite peculiar, yet you've managed to give me rigid legs, understood, rigid legs, and that's beneficial, correct? Certainly, since you're not actively engaging in shooting, greetings, here is the outcome of being idle. 2 rackets, and we strike the ball. 2 rackets, and we hit the ball. Well, after observing, the lazy exercise becomes more manageable. No, I don't consume. No, that's challenging. So, in this endeavor, observe, if I will in this endeavor, well, I lowered it in this manner, accomplished it. If I rotate my wrist in a clockwise manner, I might capture a slight inertial effect from the gentleman's or some ancient phenomenon, and it will be somewhat easier for me to strike. once more, 1,000%, 1,000th, we will observe Yarek closing in this manner. Well, he will rotate his wrist. How he strikes there, it's evident, and others we will observe in this manner, not rotating it, unexpectedly sending the effect there, perhaps. Once more with our grip, it indicates all this is such a triviality. Why focus on it?
Among the youngsters, that is, among the elevated individuals, among the students, there are whispers of wisdom. The impact of Marcus is significantly more impressive. They implemented it, so they do not trouble them. Just like the most distinguished pilots in the entire world, they are unaware of the reasons behind the plane's ability to fly. The wing profile is not fully understood in the airflows, but they can land the plane, take off wherever needed, and so on. Well, let's talk about civil aviation. They don't know why the plane flies, why the force of the card is 10 times less than the weight of the plane. The card's force moves it. Students and tourists need not be excessively concerned with the Magnus effect or the Jerry effect. The Magnus effect explains how a rotating object experiences an upward or downward force. Such rotation generates lift, and similarly, it can produce a downward force. These forces are minimal on a ball, yet they do indeed act upon it. We observe how they bounce on courts, and after the bounce, it is the opposite. We notice it, but we do not preoccupy ourselves with it. Physical preparation is significantly more important. The swing rules are significantly more important. Leg preparation and so forth are significantly more important than worrying about unnecessary physics. That is all regarding the Dzhanibekov effect.